It's nice when somebody has reached a certain plateau in life or a certain peak that they're able to look back with gratitude and appreciation. And, I know when it comes to things like Mother's Day and Father's Day, there's always an awareness in my part that not everybody has what you would call, a stellar parent in biologically, that their mother, their father, or even other situations just may not have really been a home run hitter in so many ways. But in our world today, just even the sheer fact that you're alive means that they valued life, and you're here because of that. And there's just a variety of other things. And sometimes what I've noticed is when say, a mom or dad hasn't really lived up to the greatest potential maybe that they should have, if you as a child could look back a little bit into their history, you might see some compelling reasons why they weren't able to step up to the plate as maybe you saw some of your friends' moms, that kind of thing. And so in spite of the fact that it may not be perfect, there's still a sense in which we can be gracious toward our parents. In most of your cases, you have every reason in the world to have an attitude very much like the MVP player, where you truly know and understand that your mother did build some things into you that helped you become who you are. I'm going to talk about a variety of things that are, to me, very critical, extremely important as moms. But before we do that, I'm going to do a couple things just on the lighter side, just to kind of give us a little bit of just to at least the enjoyment moment of some of the funny things that happen with regard to moms. Here's a list of things that moms would never say, or at least most moms would never say. How on earth can you see the TV sitting so far back? Yeah, I used to skip school a lot too. Just leave all the lights on. It makes the house look more cheery. Let me smell that shirt. Yeah, it's good for another week. Go ahead and keep that stray dog, honey. I'll be glad to feed and walk him every day. Well, Johnny's mama says it's okay. That's good enough for me. The curfew is just a general time to shoot for. It's not like I'm running a prison around here. I don't have any tissue with me. Just use your sleeve. Last one is, don't bother wearing a jacket. The wind chill's bound to improve. Now, there's a little thought that I had on Mother's Day that I thought, especially for those of you that are working moms, I thought you probably would relate to, and that is working mothers are guinea pigs in a scientific experiment to show that sleep is not necessary to human life. And so if you didn't realize you were in that experiment, but you felt like you were, there you go, there's proof. You probably heard about the little boy who was sent to bed by his mother, and 5 minutes later he says, "Mom." She says, "What?" He said, "I'm thirsty. Can you bring me a glass of water?" "Nope, you had your chance, lights out." 5 minutes later, "Mom." "What?" "I'm thirsty. Can I have a glass of water?" "I told you no, and if you ask me again, I'll have to spank you." 5 minutes later, "Mom." "What?" "When you come in to spank me, can you bring a glass of water?" I don't know whether that means that's a really strong-willed kid who's okay with spankings, or whether that was a really thirsty kid. You got to be really wise, don't you, on that one, man. And then one for the grandmas here today. For 2 solid hours, a lady sitting next to a man on an airplane had told him about her grandchildren. She'd even produced a plastic fold-out photo album and all 9 of her grandchildren. Obviously, this is before iPhones. She finally realized that she had dominated the entire conversation on her grandchildren. "Oh, I've done all the talking, and I'm so sorry. I know you certainly have something to say. Please tell me, what do you think of my grandchildren?" Anyway, sounds like a typical grandma, right? And then just 2 last ones for the fun of it, okay? For weeks, a 6-year-old boy kept telling his first grade teacher about the baby brother or sister that was expected at his house. One day, the mother allowed the boy to feel the movements of the unborn child. The 6-year-old was obviously impressed, but made no comment. Furthermore, he stopped telling the teacher about the impending event. The teacher finally set the boy in her lap and said, "Tommy, whatever has become of that baby brother or sister you were expecting at home?" Tommy burst into tears and confessed, "I think my mommy ate it." And then, well, I don't know how to classify this one, but I'll let you classify it. The son said to his mom, "Mom, teacher was asking about me today. He said, she asked me if you have any brothers or sisters who'll be coming to school." And the mom said, "Well, that's nice of her to take such an interest in you. So what did you say when you told her that you're the only child, my dear?" She said, "Thank goodness." Anyway, I had some older brothers before me in school. So I remember having a teacher tell me one time, whenever I was probably acting other than I should have, he said, "I had your brothers, you'll be okay." And I don't know what I didn't know altogether what that meant, but I kind of got the idea. It wasn't entirely a compliment, but maybe, anyway, how it goes. So moms, we're glad you're here, and we want you to feel and know that you are special. I didn't ask everybody, but I happened to ask a few people on their way in this morning. As moms, I said, "Did you get breakfast served in bed?" And I don't remember about the in bed so much, but every person, I didn't ask everybody by any means. So, but the ones I asked, actually, they had breakfast made for them, and this morning. And so, wow, that's pretty good. And I just stopped asking after I got like 3 or 4. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna ask you more because I know I'm gonna hit on one. It's gonna be, but that was awesome, you guys. So some of you got the day started off just great, on the right track. And then, so what I would encourage you to do is just intentionally be thoughtful toward the mom in your world, the moms in your world, maybe, and just try to think of things that will make them feel special, know that they're special. We should really be doing this stuff all year long, but please don't let Mother's Day get by without it. I also would say this, even though I'm talking today about the power of a mom, what I'm really talking about is the relational aspect of life. And if you're a dad here today, this stuff probably applies to you as well. If you're in any kind of relationship, some of it will apply to you as well. So, but particular parents, if you're a parent of a child, I think you fit. I'm going to talk to mothers specifically. If you'll grab your sermon notes beside you, the memory verse for today is, "May your father and mother rejoice. May she who gave you birth be joyful." Just want to leave you with one thought. It's a good verse to memorize because it's important for you to at least ask this question somewhere along the way, and that is my mom glad she had me? May she who gave you birth be joyful. Is there some joy that she has because of your life? And you don't have to be the MVP of some national sports franchise in order to make her joyful. It doesn't require that. It just simply requires us being a person of gratitude. I believe probably more than anything, showing our gratitude toward them for what we have done, what they have done for us. And so, so today I'd like for us all to think in terms of if your mother is living, that you would, if you're married and your wife being a mother, that you would just help make their lives a little more joyful today, and in particular because they're a mom, because they are a mom. So it's a good one to kind of keep in our memory and understand that you can make your mom's heart glad. You can do that, and not by being codependent, but by being independent and grateful. And so, as I'm talking about as an adult. Now let's look at our scripture lesson. And our scripture lesson is 2 different parts of Proverbs 31. When I think about Proverbs 31, I think oftentimes that moms or women can look at this and almost feel like guilt trip, here it comes. this perfect woman that was written about, and at least they could have given her a name so we would know who she was and so that we would know for sure, did she really do all this stuff or not? What I would like for us to look at it is from a standpoint of understanding and seeing these are values that any woman could and should embrace. And the more that she does embrace those, the more effective she becomes as a mom, as a wife, and as a person. And so the first section actually has to do with some words. The king, Lemuel says, an inspired utterance that his mother taught him. He calls it an inspired utterance. And so here's what he wrote down that she told him. She said, listen, my son, verse 2, listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. I mean, she's kind of taking him by the shoulders and saying, I need to talk to you about this. He says, do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. It's not for kings, Lemuel. It's not for kings to drink wine, nor for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. In other words, take morphine if you need it as a cancer patient, but please don't for daily use. And let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. We're going to come back and refer to this a bit in our outline. Let's go now down to the part where the king is actually talking about what this woman of excellence is like. Verse 24, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. I'm going to come back to that phrase in our outline, particularly. Verse 26, she speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Now, I know this is like a particular, the explanation of the woman of excellence is really, she sets a pretty high bar here. He sets a high bar for what this woman is about and how she operates. What I want to do is pull from these passages, these verses in front of us here, pull some concepts that I think are very validly reflected in these scriptures and talk about the power of a mom. And the first one we're going to talk about is influence. The power of a mom through her influence. And I would just say this up front. You're going to, as a mom, you're going to influence your children, period. You're going to influence them. How you influence them will depend greatly on who you are as a person and how you function as that person. So influence is not an option here. This isn't one of those things, well, you might influence your children. Or, at some point along the way, it could be that something will rub off on them. You are going to influence them, period. The question is, how are you? And so here's what I would just recommend that you think about and in ways that would be certainly opportunities for you to do so. Through your example. We know the phrase, more is caught than taught. We've all heard that. And we hear it and we know there's truth to it, but sometimes we don't act like we believe it. Because if you really evaluate your day, this isn't to put anybody on a guilt trip or say, hey, I'm a bad parent. I don't think any parent's perfect, and I don't think any parent's going to get it right, and probably not going to get right on any one given day completely, okay? I don't think you're going to go to bed at night, any night, and go, I did it all right. Everything, every reaction, every response, the way I treated the family, the kids, I don't think you're going to go to sleep at night and ever feel like that was perfect. You might, but it's unlikely. So understand, I'm not talking about perfection here. I'm talking about being a person who understands, though, that while we act, what we do, what our example is like, is having an influence. And so if there's something at the end of the day, we go, that was kind of over the top. We might want to go back and apologize, or we might want to set it right, and then move forward. Don't get hung up there. And our example can come through in many ways. Our words. What kind of words do you use? Directed to your children, and just in general in life. What kind of words do you say about other people in front of your children? And so your words are very, very critical. And what I've even noticed, we have a 6 and a 7-year-old in the household, and sometimes they can seem to be playing, just quietly over there playing. And then all of a sudden they'll go, what's happening? When's that going to happen? Or whatever. They've been listening the whole time. You thought they were playing, not paying attention, but they were listening completely to what you're saying. Kids hear a lot more than what you might think they hear. They pick up, and they pick up so quickly. So words matter. Your words matter in your example. Your actions, how you act, matters. How you act toward them, how you act toward your spouse, how you act toward other people. Your actions matter. I believe that kids will pick up more on what we do than what we say. Because I believe ultimately, whether they consciously put it into their minds or not, they're going to believe that what we do is what we really believe. And so, if you bring your child to church on a Sunday on a regular basis, they're going to believe that matters to you personally. Even if you had an argument or two on the way, they're still going to say, well, going to church matters. And you say, you think going to church saves them? No. Going to church can send them to hell too. You got to be wise in all of that. You got to have, it's more than just those kinds of actions. But the actions that we take affect greatly the things that tell. It's a message to our children about what matters. And then our attitude. What kind of an attitude do you convey throughout the day? What kind of an attitude do you have? I think there's various ones that any mom can pick up on, dads too, but maybe moms, particularly in this. Have you ever, do you know what I mean by martyr syndrome? I think a martyr syndrome is one of the easiest things for a mom to get a hold of. Because honestly, now, and let me, in all fairness to moms, let me say this. If anybody has an excuse to get a martyr syndrome, you do, okay? Because I know you do, and you do, and you do, and you do, and sometimes it seems so underappreciated. And you've scolded, and you've told, and you've said over and over again, please pick up after yourself, please this, please that, please the other. And it just seems like it falls on deaf ears. So I want to just say to you, you have a lot of room there for feeling like a martyr, but I just want to tell you, if your attitude is continuously a martyr, it won't do a lot to engender a closeness within your family. I would just say being proactive is probably a better chance, serves a better chance. Even some punishment, even some discipline with regard to it, rather than whining about it all the time. And so, that's another aspect of being a whiner, going around and just being a whiner, and also going around and being negative, being negative about everything. I've said before, sometimes when I'm talking to parents, that is, just have a yes day. Just have a yes day. I mean, unless they're going to kill themselves or something, or kill somebody else. Have a yes day. That it's whatever they ask, it's yes, Because, see, a lot of things kids ask aren't really bad things. It's just a nuisance to us, I mean, I got home the other night, and I guess it was Hunter it was just the two of us. And we got home, it was dark. It was maybe like approaching 10 o'clock or something like that. And we get out of the vehicle, and he goes, you want to go ride bikes now? I'm like, ride bikes, man? You should have been in bed an hour ago. What are you talking about? I'm like, it wasn't bad, but, I wonder, but I do want to be the kind of parent that sometimes at 10 o'clock you pull up and he goes, you want to go ride bikes? I go, sure. Let's go ride bikes. Let's go wake up Dwayne and Susan over there, across the neighborhood. Let's go visit people around, in our church that we can get down to on bikes. Let's wake them up and, have them join in the, and so, it is okay to say yes. And certainly you have to say no to a lot of things, even good things, because otherwise, I don't know about your kids. My kids really, at this point, they would be willing to manage my life. They have no problem taking over and running the house, and so, I have to tell them oftentimes when we're going someplace, they say, where are we going? Well, there's one main reason I don't like telling them where we're going, is because they generally want to argue about it, like, well, why don't we go here? Or why don't we go there? Or why don't we? And so I just say, yesterday, I had them with me both of them with me for a few hours, and I said, they were saying, where are we going? It was someplace they were going to enjoy, and so I was sort of doing it really more for fun than it was to avoid. I said, we're going someplace. And so they're going, are we going to Chick-fil-A? I said, is Chick-fil-A someplace? They said, yeah. I said, well, is that the only place, or are there other some places? Stuff like that. Anyway, you have to, and so they get my fun stuff, and but they asked me all these different places, and they never guessed the right one. And so I kept saying, we're not going to that someplace, we're going some other someplace. And so anyway, just stuff like that. It's fun, but it also, it does kind of send a subtle message that I am in charge, and we're going where I'm going. I don't mind going someplace where they're going, but I want them to understand they're with me. Someday when I'm a little bit older, I'll be riding with them, and they can go where they want to go, But right now I'm making that decision. So, but the attitude, what our attitude is in that makes such a big difference. Because you know what? Because sometimes and I can only speak from a dad's standpoint, but every once in a while I just want to yell at him and go, stop it. It doesn't, I'm in charge. You're kids. Don't try to argue with me about where we're going. Don't try to, and there's nothing wrong with reprimanding them, but it's the attitude we have. And so moms, if you've been struggling with attitude, just back up a little bit and, lock yourself in the restroom or someplace, and, and I know that doesn't work too well either. And, just take a little time to kind of just chill a bit and try to refresh your thinking a little bit and reset it. Here is another aspect of influence, and that is your teaching. And teaching has to do with instruction, the things that you actually instruct them in, actually say. And it seems to me that Lemuel, his mother was instructing him here. She was asking him, she taught him this, these things that are listed here in verses 2 through 9. She taught him this, and she was saying, Lemuel, I want you to understand this matters. This is important. So she was instructing him. I believe we have a very, very important job as parents, and moms certainly, you guys are sometimes, it seems like, even better at this, unfortunately, than some of us guys, but to instruct them, give them instruction. And then I also believe in training them, and that is to practice, give them an opportunity to practice on their own. It's like, to me, here's kind of the difference between teaching and training. Whenever, my guys, here's what I know is they're going to be knocking on the doors of the driver's license as soon as they can, if that's permissible. They want to drive now. I mean, they're geared that way, and I was that way as a kid, so I relate to that. And so so they want to know all the traffic, what they want to know all the reasons why I did what I did in traffic. I know probably some of you are thinking, well, you're not a good teacher of that, Rod. Come on, And so they're gonna wind up in the anyway. So I feel like right now we're in the mode of I'm teaching them, how to use certain signals, when to use them, when not to, because they're just wired that way. They're curious about stuff. So it's like from now until they're 15 years old, I'm just instructing them. But once they walk in there and they pass that exam, now I'm training them. They're over here practicing, and I get to be the guinea pig sitting over here, and you're hoping that the voice command works, but here's what I say. If you don't allow your kids to practice, if you don't move from just teaching, just instructing, if you don't move over to training, to practice, then they're going to practice sometime. They're going to do the training thing sometime. And if they might be past your supervision at that point, it might be a little late for some course correction. And so what I would encourage you to do is instruct them and also give them opportunities to practice on most things while they're still under your supervision. There's a few things that don't fit that, but most things do. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 is emotional health. The power of a mom is to give your child emotional health. I want you to look at verse 25 in particular with this, with this thought. She is clothed with strength and dignity. I believe emotional strength is one of the greatest gifts we can ever give to our children. I believe some children are actually naturally born with a little more emotional strength than others. I think without a doubt, there's some truth to that. But what I want to say to you is this. I believe you can make a difference in that area. I believe, and what it strikes me is that this woman, her strength and dignity is not haughtiness, because sometimes you could think, well, because sometimes I'll hear people even say, well, they feel like they act like they're better than me, or they act like they're better. I don't think that's what this woman was doing. She was spoken too well of. She was confident, and she had an inner strength. How did she do all these things? Because she had an inner strength. And her dignity means that she had a confidence. She had a capability of actually presenting herself with confidence in what she was doing. She wasn't going around doubting herself, doubting what she could accomplish. She had poise, she had capability, she had a confidence, she had inner strength, and she did it. And then the last part of verse 25 really, really speaks to that. It says she can laugh at the days to come. This isn't a fool standing out there in the street corner and going, hey, whatever comes, whatever happens, happens. This isn't what she's doing. She's not being that kind of person. She's a person who has taken care of business. She's on top of her game. And so she can laugh at the future because she's prepared for the future. And when we don't know the future, we don't understand it. But as best as humanly possible, she was prepared for it. She was able to embrace the future. And I believe the less prepared we are in life, if we feel like we're always behind the ball, we're always coming from behind, we're always trying to catch up, we're always in the mode of trying to get where we need to be instead of being where we need to be, that we always feel kind of like our slip's showing, for moms. And I know slips are kind of outdated or whatever, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like you're just not, you almost made it, but you didn't quite make it. And that happens to all of us. All of us are there sometimes. But if it always happens, then we need to go into a game-changing mode. We need to do something different. You need to find someone to mentor you. You need to find someone that you respect, admire, someone to build you up. Whether that be your own mother, or whether it be somebody else's mother, or whether it be a friend of yours that is just seems to have their game going a little better. Then what you need to do is tie into that. Because if you always feel like that born loser, you always feel like you're a few steps behind, some of that is self-imposed and some of it's not true at all. But you need to clarify that, and sometimes it takes a trusted person to get that clear. Then you're able to embrace the days ahead with a good attitude. Be able to laugh. I believe one of the things that mothers can lose if they're not careful is the ability to laugh. I want to ask you, don't raise your hand. Don't yell it out for somebody or for yourself. How long has it been since just in your home, around your family, moms, that you've just had a good old belly laugh? And you know what I mean by that. You can be skinny as a beanpole and still have a good belly laugh, okay? But it's just like your whole body's shaking, kind of. You're laughing so hard. You say, that just sounds like immature foolishness, Rod. That seems absolutely silly. You'd even take time on Sunday morning to talk about that. Well, if you feel that way, please have a good belly laugh and watch the reaction of your family. Because here's what they will do. If you haven't laughed in quite a while and you really, really get tickled, they're going to gather around like there's been an accident on Main Street. And they're going to all look like, look, she's laughing. And they're going to be totally, utterly amazed that you're laughing. And that's a shame. That is a shame. Life is serious, and life as a mom is hard, and it is serious. But if you stop laughing, you've just ripped some joy out of your home. That is really, really critical. I don't have time to go into a couple stories of my own mom on that, but I would just have to tell you, even though she was a widow and she was raising 5 kids, began doing it at the age of 36, and had kids from 14, 5 kids, ages 14 to 2, and life was tough and life was serious, that I have some very, very good memories of my mom really, really laughing hard. And she was the last thing from being a fool. She was as close to a Proverbs 31 woman as anyone I've ever met in my life. And I'm probably a bit prejudiced, but I believe that to be true. And so I think there's something that happens whenever you're healthy emotionally, moms, that just feeds your kids. It feeds them. It feeds them in a very healthy way. I would venture to say, even though I'm going to say a couple things that seem probably even more important than what I just said, I'm going to say that moms, please do not miss what I just spoke. Please embrace that. Take it to heart. Number 3, unconditional love. You know, humanly speaking, it's very hard for us to truly have unconditional love. We know God has that for us. But here's how I kind of thought about describing it today. See, unconditional love from God is this. It showed up early. Even in the Garden of Eden, whenever Adam and Eve were kicked out, there's an early prophecy about the fact that there would be a Savior that would come. There's an early prophecy right in that story that there was a Savior that would come. So God showed up early, where people were away from God and had broken that fellowship. He showed up early, and he's staying late. We'd like to say, we live in a world that's pretty broken, and it's like a lot of people would say, well, I can't believe Jesus hasn't come already. But it's because of his unconditional love for people that he hasn't come back yet. It's because of his desire for people to have a chance to know him and love him. It's his unconditional love. And so we got to understand, even the people in our world that we may disagree with significantly, and it may seem like they kind of have the face of evil almost on them, and the things that they would do to destroy our culture and in our world, that God loves that person. He loves that person. He died for that person. And so God shows up early and he stays late. And I believe for most of us in our lives, most people come late and show up and leave early. Most people in our lives, they come late and they leave early. In other words, you're only going to get most people to travel with you for a piece of your life, for portions, for parts of it. But a mom that has unconditional love, she's there at the beginning, and her last breath or your last breath, whichever comes first, she still loves you like nobody else. Nobody else. I think unconditional love from a mom is saying, I'll be there when everybody else goes away. I'll be there whenever nobody else cares about you. I'll be there when everything in your world is upside down. I'll be there when everything's going great. I'll be there for your greatest celebrations. See, because there are a lot of people that can't be there for our greatest celebrations. But if possible, our moms will be. So to me, unconditional love is just this. And how does it show up in a daily? Well, you're ahead of the kids in the morning, and you're still folding socks after they're sleeping. Whatever it is. You show up early, you stay late. Show up early, you stay late. That's just the best way I could come to express it today, is to say that your unconditional love is expressed often in that very example. Number 4, relational confidence. This ties into emotional health, but relational confidence is critical if kids do not learn how to interact and relate with others positively. they're limited. Their life is limited. If you'll notice with me in verses 8 and 9, this is to me an indication of someone who is relationally confident. It's not someone who can only be, to me, people who are not confident relationally can only be with people who think just like them, who look just like them, who act just like them, who will only do the very same things they do. That's a person who's kind of insecure relationally. I can only be with people who are just like me. Now, there's a good reason why we enjoy that, and I'm not saying don't hang out with people you like to be around that are like you. Please, even as a church family, even in church families, that's true. You know, there are many, many churches in the area here, but people tend to congregate with those who they feel more kinship with. And so there's nothing wrong with that in itself. But I will say this, relational confidence allows you sometimes to reach above where you are, interact with people, and below where you are, interact with people. If you will look here, some of the wisdom that Lemuel's mother spoke to him in verse 8. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. It takes someone who has some relational confidence to be able to do that. And you know, I can't start naming names here and things, but we have people right here in our church, some of those examples of the families up here this morning that have done this very, very thing right here. They have done this. And there are other examples of it within our congregation. And it takes relational confidence to go beyond our comfort zones in one direction or another and to make a difference. And look at verse 28. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. See, if you don't have a strong relationship with your children, I hate to tell you, they're not going to rise up and call you blessed. I mean, they may tip their hat to you in some way or that kind of thing. But this means that this woman had relational change in her pocket. She had built the kind of relationship where there was a reciprocation. It wasn't only a one-sided, but she had trained and taught her children enough to have kind of gratitude that they would actually honor her with their words. Called her blessed. And I know, look, there are certain stages when a kid's growing up. If they come to you one day and say, "Oh, blessed mother, I'm so glad I have you," just ask them what they want, okay? You know better than that. You know, it's not. There are stages where that's not going to happen, and they're not. And most of them are never going to do it like that. But there is a point if you've built strong relationship with them where you will see and understand and be aware that they appreciate you and they love you and they are endeavoring to be a blessing to you. Last one, certainly probably the most important without a doubt, is prayer. The power of a mom is prayer. There's today from Children's Church, you're going to, all moms will get a packet of some kind, and you're going to, in there, there's going to be an article from Rod Addison about the praying mom, and or praying parents, actually, maybe it's geared toward that, but it applies moms and dads. But there's a couple, I'm just going to refer to, he quoted somebody at the top of the article. I read the article as Vange was putting it together and for moms today. And I want to encourage you to read the entire article. Really, really awesome article. But he quotes some man who said, before I was married, I had 6 theories on raising children. He said, now that I'm married and have 6 children, now that I'm married, I have 6 children and 0 theories on raising children. So, you know, when it gets into the practice side of it, it gets pretty hard. But here is something that Rod Addison said. He said he has 3 kids, and it's kind of shattered his idea, all of his theories too. But he still has one theory that he holds on to. And that is, he may not be a perfect parent, but he can be a praying parent. And see, one of the things about being a praying parent is this. God can do things you can't do. This is where the real power of a mom comes in. And if I could tell you literally story after story after story of how my mom's prayers ended up becoming like a clear glass window or door to my life, where I sometimes walked up to the edge of disobedience and some bad habits and start down the road pathway of rebellion, and would find myself sometimes pressed hard, almost up against this invisible glass, to where I literally felt like I was trying to push through. I was trying to break through, and there was this invisible barrier that just seemed like I was plastered up against and held. And at some point along the way, I began to realize that my mom's prayers were shielding me, and God was effectively doing everything possible. I could have broken through the glass. I could have busted through, but there was enough resistance there that it held me back from walking into some things that I would probably still be dealing with today had I gone through that glass and broken through. And so all I can say is this, I can read all the verses in the Bible about prayer. I can tell you all the reasons why you ought to pray. But from a personal experience, I can tell you, and you may not believe it, but I can tell you it wouldn't matter to me. I could stand in front of the world and say this and believe it with my whole heart, that my mom's prayers stopped me at many points in my life where I could have easily run down a path that would take into destruction. I would also say this, that my mom's prayers have lifted me up and encouraged me many times when I was trying to do the right thing too. And it was like wind under the sails, or wind under the wings, helping to move forward. And I know every Sunday since I became a pastor 30 years ago, up until my mother's death, every Sunday morning particularly, I'm not saying she didn't other times, but every Sunday morning, she held me and my two brothers who are pastors up before the Lord. Every Sunday, I knew that when I came to share with the congregation that there was some wind under the sails of the Spirit already that were moving because of Mom's prayers that were at work. Now, I know that everyone here maybe has not had a praying mom, but here's what I would like to suggest to you. There's nothing that would stop you from being a praying mom. Nothing that would keep you from being a person who's very familiar with the throne room of God and who is very connected to God on behalf of your children. And I even believe this, your children may wonder and they may waver and they may seem like they're clear off in another path, but I'm going to tell you this, your child can never go any place, even the darkest place in this world, that God's Spirit cannot go and meet them there. And I believe that with my whole heart. Let me give you two verses. Here is verse 2. King Lemuel's mother is saying, "Listen, my son. Listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers." You know what she's saying? You're here today, king, son. You're here today because I prayed for you. You're no accident. You didn't just happen. You didn't just fall out of the sky. You're here because of prayer. Now, you know what? You may not be here because of someone's prayers, but I can tell you this, you're not here by accident. Every person who is conceived has a purpose. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been conceived. And yes, that means conceived illegitimately, or however you want to interpret anything else. If that child is conceived, because I've said before, there are a lot of people who have sex that don't have children. If a child is conceived, God has a purpose for that child. And don't ever forget it. This woman, she had prayed for the son. She goes, I want you to understand, you're here because of prayer. God has a purpose for you, and don't you forget it. And she goes on to say some things about how he should live his life. Now, look down at verse 30. Charm is deceitful, beauty is fleeting. If you got a beautiful mom, that's great. You can be proud of her for being beautiful, everything else. That's wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. but it won't last forever. We all get wrinkled sometime. Okay, so, best preserved, whatever. Some point, some wrinkles show up somewhere. So if you depend on that, it's going to fade on you. That's it. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. This woman was a woman who knew God. She feared God. She put him in his rightful place. And I just want to tell you, one of the best ways to deal with some of the chaos in your lives is to put God in his rightful place. Put him where he belongs. That's the throne room of your heart, guiding your thoughts. And I believe, without doubt, I want to say this, I believe some of the best moms in the entire world are right here in this building this morning. Right here. I want you to turn to a mom near you and say, you are one of the best. And I mean that. I try not to tell a lie. And I'm going to tell you, I mean that. I believe that. I really, honestly believe some of the best moms in the world are right here, right now. Don't ever forget it. God loves you.